get closer so that way you can...
Yep.
Okay. All right, so is it on?
Yep.
Okay, Fire Escape Academy Inspector Training video. We're here with Gene Novak, right?
Right.
State Inspector. And what we're going to be doing, we're in town of Westboro. We just finished doing an Academy training class, and we're doing what's called a downtown walk around, and we're just going to look at this fire escape as an example. And all around this fire escape, there's several types of the same type of fire escape that don't have cantilevers, that have ladders. So we're going to show you, and he's going to pass this on to all the members. And this is a YouTube link that basically it's going to be a 3 to 5 minute video. It could be 10 minutes because we're going to walk all the way around the building. But what an inspector has to do to no longer ever step on these things. All fire escape inspections can be done right from the ground. And there's two things. Must be structurally sound, must be kept painted. So let's start off with the first one. Whether or not there's a violation here. If you could have gone in this building for something else, a permit of some kind, only to walk out here and identify that the fire escape is or has not been painted. So, first question, more rust than paint or more paint than rust?
Hey, this is about 50-50.
50-50?
So it's clearly a concern.
It's been, and in order for this much rust, just so you know, it takes over 25 years for this much rust to grow, of no paint job. And that's a proven fact, that it takes over 25 years to let this much grow. So let's say they knew you were coming. Last week, you gave out a notice that said, hey, I'm coming to your building, I'm going to do an inspection, and I'm checking your fire escape. A building owner was like, oh man, I'm not going to pass. He gets Joe Painter to come out and do a quick paint job on this, and it happens all the time. They want to mask it. Because a lot of times, you're only underneath it, you're looking for a paint job, and a lot of times the paint job can hide a lot. So let's assume it's all painted now. The second thing you're looking for is for testing, structural adequacy. This building is 50 to 75 years old or older, and the fire escape is original to the building, but every connection on this is original. So usually in 50, 75 years, you've seen some sort of maintenance. And that maintenance could be changing of bolts, because to know that it's original hardware, you're looking at rivets or square head bolts.
Square heads, yeah.
And you're looking for evidence of any bulges in the connection plates of any kind. So, without even looking for structural problems such as missing treads or anything, do you notice any new hardware? Anything? Any new little bolts?
Yes, we do.
Anywhere, okay?
So the largest square head, we see some hex heads on the stringer.
There you go. So it looks like they came in and did something with the staircase, and there's some hex heads. So if you want to zoom in on those stringers, you see some hex heads there.
And we also see some type of flange underneath looks like an add-on underneath the tread.
Okay, so it looks like they created a bracket to hold the old tread up above.
That's right.
All right, let's see what the old treads look like. Because are they welded or are they so let's look over here. If you look in here, look at the original treads. Are they bolted or welded? Do they look like a certified welder to those? They do not. Even with your lack of experience as what is a certified inspection of a weld, you can see that it's kind of not the greatest. And did they repaint it after it was done?
I tell you, it doesn't look like they cleaned the welds off.
They didn't clean the welds, they didn't paint it.
I mean, they weren't inspected. We have a new tread here.
Right. So here's a new tread, a new piece of galvanized. So we've got some evidence of maintenance. Now, let's take a look at, if you look straight up, can you see any bulges in the clips of the treads that they just welded? You know, little rust tears, or can you see that? Especially that one.
Yes.
Now, especially that one, and Viv, if you can come in here.
I did already. I got
See
it.
the broken weld? See, welds snap, bolts stretch. So if I'm going to leave the rust inside a connection, 1 year, when the rust grows another 8, what happens to that weld? Just snaps. So is weld a means of repair for any fire escape? No. Fire escapes in the summer do this. They expand and do this. And in the winter they cool and contract and they do this. Now when you weld it, it does this. So that's why 98% of all the fire escapes in the United States are bolted connection fire escapes. They're supposed to move with the building and they're supposed to cool with the building. That's why all fire escapes are bolted. Very few are welded. And a lot of times, you think when they weld it, they seal it up above so no water gets inside? Do you think water's getting inside those welds right now and basically eating the weld from inside out? So it makes it so you can't weld. So let's go step back. Let's take a look at the rest of the hardware. Square or square head or Hex head. So the weights, nobody's done anything on this
Here we
weight
go.
box.
Large bulge right here.
Large bulge. If you step back here, you're going to see some large bulge over here. This whole connector, this joint over here, see some bulging happening here?
Yep.
Let's look at the gussets over here. Original or square heads?
Original.
All right, and look over here, straight up. Look at this gusset, straight up. If you come over here, then take a look at this gusset. And now, it's rust inside the connection. Yes. Now, look, if you come over here, G, look at that gusset way back there. You see a bulge on the top? Doing this?
Yep. Yep.
All right? But do you even care whether or not on this 50 to 75-year-old fire escape, whether this gusset is beautiful, that gusset is compromised, and that gusset is compromised, will an engineer load test a fire escape that has 50, 75, or 100-year-old square original hardware? Do you think he would want to? You wouldn't want to. Now, if I came in here and I just took out some of these bolts and I put in new bolts in the connections, one at a time, or if this one is in great condition, do you think I could squeeze another bolt between them? You think I could squeeze some other new holes in there? So I have a choice in preparation for this thing for a load test. If I find square head bolts that are in good to excellent condition, and I don't want to change them out, I can actually reinforce them by backing them up with another bolt. But sometimes it's faster for me to take an old bolt out and put a new bolt in than it is for me to drill a new one next to it. So whatever's cheaper to the client, we'll prepare it for a load test. So this original hardware, I can't load test this platform, but I can refurbish this platform in lieu of a load test.
Where is this primary attachment to the building? I don't see it.
The attachment to the building is going to come, let me see if I can see the two bolts. See right here. If you look straight up there, you can see there's a through bolt into the building up there. Oh, sorry. And I think there's through bolts here that basically tie you into the building. It's actually above.
No, it's right there in the corner. Right in that corner, there's a hole that goes right in.
Yeah.
Right
Oh, I
at the
see.
corner.
Yeah. There's this is basically, it's got a backing plate inside, even though it's a brick structure. And there's a rod that comes out, and then that rod, if you look up there's 3 bolts that come out. So the rod comes out round 1 inch, and then they smash it and they flatten it, and it becomes 3 bolts that connect to the angle. So you see 3 of them right there.
Okay.
And there's more that you can see. So let's move forward into the cantilever. Must be balanced and must drop 2 to 3 feet per second. This is a release arm.
Yeah.
So I can't break into this building because this release arm won't let me pull the cantilever down.
I don't even know how it works. It's just you turn
As
it.
soon as it blocks your way. Single action requiring no special knowledge, and when you push it away, it
But it's
turns.
It's not even open.
No, but it turns.
Yeah.
No, see, it's resting on the top. It's
Right.
trying to drop.
Oh, okay, I see.
See, it wants to go up, so it stops. So that's a permanent release arm. When you release it, the thing will drop 2 to 3 feet per second, hit the ground, and stay down. Let's take a look at some other things. You see some bending on the cantilever arm?
Yeah.
Now, they've obviously refurbished a lot of the treads on this whole fire escape. Right? Just to make it balance. But sometimes they add weight. This is perfect, because now we're looking at from down here, so we can move on to this one. Can you tell me whether or not those are original or new? All right. So would I load test that? So you want to see refurbishment or rebolting of the major critical connections. That is all the treads. You see all the treads rebolted. Are you satisfied that all the treads have been rebolted on this fire escape? There's evidence of maintenance, right? You can see it, right? So that means somebody refurbished the tread system. What about the platform tread? Have they been refurbished?
No.
All right. So you want that now taken care of before you'll allow this. You need a load test here too, right?
Yeah. It looks like there's something missing at the top. It's here. Line out. Goes off a little bit.
No. A lot of times there's not going to be any boxing or anything like you see over there. It doesn't need the grading is what ties it all together. But now with that happening here, let's move over to this little one. You know what this is? This is called a fold-out ladder. You know how these work. This actually is supposed to fold up if it was properly working. This folds up into itself and it looks like a drain pipe. And you only release it from above. And when you release it, it does this. This is 7 to 9 feet off the ground. I'm supposed to jump to the remaining portion. But do you trust every one of these rivets on this ladder? without a load test. If I load test this, will that be sufficient?
If you're load testing, yeah.
Okay, otherwise can I give you another alternative? If I was to take out each one of these rivets and put in a new bolt here, well then, will you be then satisfied? That would be a certification in lieu of a load test. You want refurbishment, reinforcement in lieu of a load test. Because that's what the law says, right?
Yeah.
Examination
These
or a
are-
load test.
These are hollow rivets?
No, they're through, but they're one piece. But the water's getting in there. Can you, if you see that everything's been compromised. Original square heads. You test this, see the rust inside there?
Yeah.
Even though it's a 16th to an 8th, do you think that rust has compromised these bolts? So in order for somebody to guarantee this to you, as soon as I take out those two bolts, which is pretty fast, I don't need to verify them anymore. I can just change the bolts. So refurbishment is what gives you the guarantee. Let's take a look at this one. Do you see any cement problems?
Oh, yeah. Oh, repointing needed.
Perfect. Look at the gussets. Do you see any bulges in the gussets? Especially this
Yeah.
right one.
Oh, yeah.
So you already see that, and even if you couldn't see original hardware or new hardware anywhere on this fire escape system. No new hardware, so it's impossible for something that's 50 to 75 years old not to have some sort of refurbishment to satisfy you as the inspector. What about paint job? Needs a paint job or no paint job? And the fact that this thing's down, this is a break-in issue. People can break into the building, but if this thing was properly greased and properly bolted, you can close this up now. There's nobody breaking into this building. Okay, now let's walk this way. There's a fixed fire escape ladder right here. And if any of these bolts ever give weight, how heavy are these to fall on somebody's head?
Yeah, this looks like it's bent a little bit.
Right, it's bulging.
Oh, yeah.
How about back here?
Quite a bit, yeah. Yeah, it needs refurbishment.
Okay, and if you can get in there and look at the this is about 1,000 pounds worth of weight here.
Now, is this concrete or?
No, that's solid steel. It's cast iron. Okay, now look at back here.
Yeah.
You think that's holding it?
Yeah, yeah,
So the rivets that hold the whole angle,
yeah.
they're gone. And look at the nut, it's gone.
Yeah.
You come back here and shoot this. And then what about this corner? The frame, is that corner good?
That's both.
So this fire escape is structurally unsound. Did you have to climb on this fire escape to make that assessment?
No.
So we've done a cantilevered unit. You've looked up 3 stories. We've done a balcony with a folding ladder. Let's go to the front of this building. And again, this much rust takes 25 years of non-paint, never paint job work. Again, you're on a physical inspection on the building. You happen to walk out and notice there's a fire escape. More rust than paint or more paint than rust? So it needs a paint job. So if you only want to write a violation on just the maintenance part, that's all you need. Because whether you write a violation on paint or structural, it always requires the 5-year anyway. Both of them are going to get you the same thing. So now let's look up structure. Any evidence of any maintenance anywhere. But you're the first thing you look for is any new hex heads anywhere, to your knowledge. So if you don't see one new hex head in 50, 75, or 100 years of this building, has anybody ever structurally touched this fire escape? So do you need to go any further? You want to get out a window and climb on it and test it with your body? You want to do a live load test?
No.
You know?
In fact, there's a chain here with a...
Correct. That chain is because this too is a fold-out ladder. This thing is, if you could.
It's supposed to be up.
Oh yeah, this one's slow.
Oh, yeah, that could be up.
It does move. It's just not tall enough.
So that should be...
And that's a break-in. But now look for bulges. See how the original here? So nobody can ever load test this. You got bulges, especially on this, so look how big the bulge is. So you got unsupported platform. Let's take a look into the building. Do you see any cement connections that are tearing up? You know, and you look like they've been doing some repointing anyway. But did they verify it back into the building? All right, let's take a look at this one. So they can have this, but now we're in obstruction. They can take that pole and put it up there.
Okay.
But right now, the guy took advantage of something, and that's obstructing firemen from getting up to you, getting down. But again, more paint than rust or more rusted paint?
All rusted, yeah.
More rusted paint? And what about structurally? Any evidence of any maintenance in the history of this fire escape that you can identify on the rail, on
Not
the
in the fire
gusset?
escape. A little repointing, but nothing in the fire
Now,
escape.
one bolt in 75 years. It's impossible. And no
In fact-
engineer will load test this.
In fact, we have a cornerstone or
Yeah. A lot of times it's because as the iron grows, it snaps lentils and it snaps stone. So anything else? How about the corners on the rails? And this thing is a fire escape deck. You see how it's opening in that position? And then when you release it, it comes down.
Well, you can look test these. They do details.
Alright. So now there's one last fire escape. Let's come over here.
And lastly, there's an air conditioner and
Exactly.
in this one, so you have another obstruction.
Obstruction,
Two
yeah. No
obstructions.
ACs in the windows, correct? No flower pots on the fire escape. Now this is just one building. And you didn't come out for a fire escape inspection. You came out for some other form of inspection. So let's see if this one. So if this thing was greased, when you release it from above, so now if it's closed, I can't break it in the building. It's not properly attached here. It used to be here, so it's not properly attached. And when you release it and it was properly greased, it's supposed to do this. It comes down and people come down.
This is loose.
Oh yeah, the whole thing. So now let's down here. You can see a lot more of the cement situation. Now let's talk about the cement. You want me to blow that hole open and verify that it's properly connected into the building, or do you want a new epoxy bolt next to it?
More epoxy roll.
For what reason? Because I can make $250 per examination, but I can only make $25 per new epoxy bolt. So is it really what's better for the client? Whatever's cheaper and faster for the client. So instead of me verifying what obviously looks like a good mistake, but it's unverifiable without some form of destructive testing, which means right next to it I drill a 3/4 hole next to the steel, and then I put in a probe and I start photographing it whichever way I can to prove to you with photographs that, but instead 3 to 5 inches away, I put a new bolt, put a Hilti epoxy bolt, mechanically fasten it back to this one, make sure this one is properly packed. Now the unknown, it's called the invisible connection, has now been duplicated. So it's ever cheaper, verification of the connection or duplication, whatever's cheaper to the client. Otherwise, the only other way for me to guarantee the wall, even after I've done all my rebolting, let's say I rebolt 100% of this fire escape, and you still say, give me the guarantee. It says I can't, I must load test it. Because it's an unknown. How it ties into the building is unknown. And loading a load test is going to prove to me whether it can handle. Or to avoid the costly load test, if you let me epoxy bolt it into the wall, I don't need a load test because I've refurbished 97% of the fire escape with new bolts, which I'll be able to physically show you. Photographed of every one of these bolts will be new hex head bolts. All my joints will be sealed with silicone. The fire escape will be primed and painted. The EPA law applies here too. Is this older than 1978? I must have a renovator's license. I must pull a permit. If I'm going to touch this fire escape, change one bolt, do I need a permit?
Well, Cisco, I must say your strategies work well here because you mentioned the square bolt and this is your hex-head bolt. So the hex-head bolt here, the two top of this ladder, we can actually see the old holes.
Yeah.
They actually relocated the ladder.
Yeah.
And apparently there's a maintenance on it, which is not obviously not.
Right. But if I do all those things and I seal it up, the only thing left for you to get the word guarantee or the word certification from me is let me load test it. And I won't load test it unless I change all the bolts. So there's even a preparation process, getting it ready for a load test. And the other thing is the connections you're known to the wall. Now let's say this was welded. Let's say this was welded, there was no bolts here. How do I verify the weld? Without an expressive x-ray machine. But as soon as I blow a hole, and if this was welded and I blow a hole through here, not even welded, forget it, I don't care about the welding, but I put a new bolt. As soon as I bolt it and I back up my weld, now my weld can stay. I seal it still so that water doesn't get inside and eat that weld anyway, but my bolt now is my primary. So the only unknowns on fire escapes are welded connections, which we back up with a bolt, unknown connections into the building, which we either verify through a very expensive destruction process, or we epoxy bolt next to it. But otherwise, 97% of this fire escape, I'm able to make an opinion on right away that says I got original hardware, which I won't allow a load test on. But as soon as I reinforce or replace every one of these bolts and give this thing a paint job, I can then give you a certification with no disclaimers. Is that as good as it gets instead of a load test? So all you're looking for from all your inspectors is to not take opinion tests anymore, which they say it's very clear. To the best of my information, knowledge, and belief, the fire escape is structurally sound and has been kept painted. Those are unacceptable.
So we're maximizing public safety.
This is a national strategy now because there's a lot more and more people learn about this, that it's this simple. Don't have your inspectors come out the window and step on this and do an evaluation from above. Don't have them do an inspection where they come down a set of stairs all the way to the ground. They're taking their lives in their own hands because at any time a tread can give way, a support can give way. All these things basically repeat themselves. So whether this is a 1-story or a 10-story, they don't fix all the stories except for the first floor. So whatever you see for the first floor usually repeats itself on all the floors. So if they're not maintaining the first floor, do you think they're maintaining the second? So every inspection for fire escapes is now at ground level. And if you have binoculars, it'll help. But otherwise, everything is with a naked eye.
This is extremely educational. I think that's what we need, training and education.
Well, we'll send this out as a link to you, and you can send it out to as many of your constituents and members of your association, and they can watch it on YouTube night and day.